an update. What is the status of the special military operation in Ukraine as you see it?
Special military operation is unfolding as Russia has envisioned. They are in the process of liberating, capturing, occupying, whatever term you want to use, the Donbass. They have successfully linked the Donbass with Crimea with a land bridge. They're in the process of destroying the bulk of the Ukrainian army. And I think Russia is finding itself in a position it probably didn't anticipate when they started the special military operation. That is, things have developed in terms of NATO's and the United States level of support to Ukraine. We see the Ukrainian military reconstituting a significant combat capability, both outside of Ukrainian territory. We know that right now there's Ukrainian military formations undergoing advanced training in the use of Western artillery pieces in Poland and in Germany. Similar training is taking place regarding armored vehicles, tanks that are being provided. And what this means is that even though Russia is in the process of destroying a significant force, 40 to 60,000 Ukrainian troops in eastern Ukraine, Ukraine is reconstituting a combat capability that, if not addressed, will create the potential for a lengthened conflict. We've seen that the Ukrainians have the ability to carry out combined arms operations as we speak. We see successful counterattacks in the Kharkov region. We see Ukraine attempting counterattacks in the south toward Kherson. So the idea that the Ukrainian military has been completely eliminated as an effective fighting force, I think, is a flawed concept. They are suffering significant losses, but unless Russia broadens its special military operation and probably to the point of changing it from a special military operation to a war that includes the totality of the Ukrainian battle space. This is a conflict that is becoming dangerously close to being unwinnable by Russia, meaning that while they can achieve their special military operation objectives in the eastern Ukraine with 200,000 troops, they're not able to prevent Ukraine from rearming and re-equipping when Ukraine is being provided with tens of billions of dollars worth of equipment by NATO. Ukraine, look, we saw this in Vietnam. We saw this in Iraq. We saw this anywhere when in the Russians saw in Afghanistan. Anytime you provide your opponent safe space to build up military capability, you're never going to win. The North Vietnamese had the Ho Chi Minh Trail, Laos, Cambodia. In Afghanistan, the Russians saw that the Afghan rebels had Pakistan. In Iraq, the rebels, the Shia rebels, were able to use Iran as an area for refitting, re-equipping, retraining, etc. And so long as Russia allows NATO and Ukraine virtual hands-free access to Western Ukraine for training and for places in Poland, Germany, and elsewhere to equip without fear of Russian attack, this is a conflict that Russia is going to have a very difficult time controlling. They're winning in the East. That's what they said their objective was all along. They're accomplishing that objective. That's a special military operation. But we're talking war right now. I don't think Russia's made that transition yet. This is a de facto proxy war between the West and Russia, using NATO or using Ukrainian forces as the sword for NATO. The goal of this is to bleed Russia dry. And if Russia doesn't change the dynamic, then the reality is Russia will be bled dry. This is a conflict that is extremely bloody. Zelensky's indicated he's willing to mobilize 1 million people. And if it's one thing to say I'm going to mobilize 1 million people. It's another thing to say I'm going to mobilize 1 million people at the time when the West is ready to provide you with the funding that makes us capable and the equipment that turns 1 million people into a real military threat. So I see what's been happening in the last couple of weeks as being very decisive. This military aid that the West is providing is changing the dynamic. And if Russia doesn't find a way to address this meaningfully, to eliminate it as a military capability, then so long as Russia seeks a limited objective operation, that's all they're going to get. But the conflict will never end. I don't see Ukraine surrendering anytime soon. The thing that frustrates me, not because I'm pro-Russian or whatever, it's that my assessment was that it would be very difficult for Ukraine to absorb this equipment, this material. The 155 howitzers are already operating against Russia. They're in Ukraine. They're operating. They're having effect in the Kharkov region. Not all 90 of them, but they have several batteries worth in play. How did this happen? This is one of the reasons why I've radically changed my my overall assessment, because I had been operating under the assumption that Russia would be able to interdict the vast majority of this equipment. Russia has shown itself unable or unwilling to do this. And as a result, the Ukrainians are having meaningful impact on the battlefield, not in the areas of main contention in the Donbass, but on the periphery. For instance, this is one of the reasons why Russia has carried out tactical withdrawals north of Kharkov, because in order to match, Ukraine's putting its best capabilities there. In order to match that best capability, Russia would have to divert resources from its main effort. Russia has opted not to do so, so they're trading, land, redefining the battlefield, realigning it, using natural terrain features such as rivers to block the Ukrainians. But this is a transformative moment in the war, because what it means is that demilitarization is not taking place. That for all the forces that Russia's destroying in the east, Ukraine is rebuilding significant capability. And I liken this to Moscow in October, November, December of 1941, where the Germans are driving, they're moving towards Moscow, and the Russians just start throwing things at them, sacrificing everything to slow the Germans down until General Winter and the combination of Siberian divisions came in that gave them the ability to counterattack. The Germans were bled white, and they were stopped and pushed back. If Russia doesn't change the calculation that's going on right now, that is the trajectory we're heading on, because 200,000 troops, no matter how good they are and well equipped they are only capable of doing so much. And the fighting that's taking place right now, even though it's slaughtering Ukrainians, it ain't cost free to the Russians. They're losing equipment. They're losing men. They're losing materiel. And unless Putin mobilizes or transfers forces in, those aren't being replaced. So instead of having 200,000 men online, Russia today might have 180,000. And if you don't think removing 20,000 people from that equation changes the options available to the Russian leadership, you don't know anything about war. So I believe Russia is going to win in the East. I believe they're grinding the Ukrainians down as we speak. They're slaughtering them. It's the amount of death and destruction being dealt to the Ukrainians is unimaginable. But I believe the Ukrainians are willing to take these losses in order to buy time so that they can reconstitute a military that will challenge Russia. Because unless Russia's willing to jump across the Dnieper River and head into central Ukraine and western Ukraine and eliminate the strategic depth that the Ukrainians are being gifted by the Russians, demilitarization is not taking place. It can't take place when tens of billions of dollars of equipment is pouring in and Russia's not able to interdict it. You know, the fact that these 155 millimeter M777 howitzers are operating on the front lines right now shows that there's something wrong with the Russian methodology. And unless they alter that methodology, I think that we're in for a very long summer.